In 2023, we took a Viking Mediterranean Italian Sojourn cruise. Mount Vesuvius looms majestically as well as dangerously over Naples and the surrounding area. If a similar sized eruption occurred today, it would destroy the entire Italian port city of Naples and displace over 1 million people. Half of the population of Naples is now classified as being at risk from the volcano, which is known as Europe's time bomb. Unfortunately, they're extremely faded and in poorly lighted areas, and it was just so crowded you couldn't really stop to take pictures, so they really didn't come out too good. But when you entered the brothel, you are greeted by rooms for customers and a menu painted on the wall where the visitors could point to the services they wanted. That was the purpose of the pictures up there. Since many of the people actually couldn't read, it wasn't like they could hand out a menu. The discovery of erotic art in Pompeii and Herculaneum left the archaeologists with a dilemma stemming from the clash of cultures between the mores of sexuality in ancient Rome and the counter-Reformation Europe. An unknown number of discoveries were hidden away. A wall fresco depicting the ancient god of sex and fertility with its grossly enlarged penis was covered with plaster. An older reproduction was locked away out of the prudishness and opened only on request and only rediscovered in 1998 due to rainfall. In 2018, an ancient fresco depicting an erotic scene of Leda and the Swan was discovered at Pompeii. Many of these artifacts from the buried cities are preserved in the Naples National Archaeological Museum. In 1819, when King Francis visited the Pompeii exhibition there with his wife and daughter, he was so embarrassed by the erotic artwork that he had it locked away in a secret cabinet, a gallery within the museum accessible only to people of mature age and respected morals. Reopened and reopened again, and then closed again for nearly 100 years, the Naples Secret Museum was briefly made accessible again at the end of the 1960s during the time of the sexual revolution, and was finally reopened for viewing in 2000. Minors are still allowed entry only in the presence of a guardian or with written permission. Evidently, they don't get HBO or MTV there. Since there was such a huge inequity in the super wealthy and the poor, being as Pompeii was the Club Med of its time, the wealthy used to subsidize the entertainment such as sex, wine, and gladiatorial spectacles. This helped to keep the poor appeased, unlike a lot of what happens today. An excavation project called the Great Pompeii Project was started in 2012. Around 105 million euros were allocated, and a lot of people wanted to get their hands on that money. However, there were problems with people siphoning off money, shoddy reconstruction work. But the overseers on the site now have a new plan in place that targets corruption, keeps a watchful eye on any possible looting, and underscores the significance of keeping Pompeii intact through careful oversight. The site's struggle with crime and corruption has actually lasted centuries. Excavation at Pompeii and neighboring Herculaneum commenced in 1738-1748 and brought a flood of antiquities to the market. Some had been sanctioned for sales, but many had not, and it was at this time that many newly excavated pieces were sold to wealthy Europeans just hungry to buy classical antiques. Water pipes in Pompeii had extremely high levels of toxic chemicals, vomiting, diarrhea, even death. A new study shows that the water pipes from the city contained high levels of the poisonous metal antimony. The giant cloud of ash and gases released by Vesuvius only took about 15 minutes to kill the inhabitants. The estimated 2,000 people who died in the ancient Roman city when they could not escape were not overwhelmed by the lava, but rather asphyxiated by the gases and ashes that later covered in volcanic debris. Some Mount Vesuvius victims suffered slowly, and one victim's brain turned to glass. New research says the remains of those who became trapped by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius just tell a story of tragic suffering, according to the new ability to analyze their bones. When the Romans took over the city, they redesigned it in the typical Roman fashion. On one side of the city was the Forum, and it was there that much of the business of the city was carried out. There were also the temples to Venus, Jupiter, and Apollo near the Forum. An aqueduct carried water into the city to be used in the public baths and fountains. I had always wondered why these other cities didn't have casts of people like Pompeii. And it turned out that these other cities were closer to the volcano and suffered a pyroclastic blast, producing temperatures over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, just vaporizing anything living. Pompeii was covered with ash. These are produced when excavating. Archaeologists found holes in the ashes that were once the bodies of people that were buried during the eruption. They poured plaster into the holes, and scientists have been able to make detailed casts of many of the citizens of Pompeii. This is the last place that you walk through, at least in our 2023 trip, because excavations are constantly ongoing. You get to sort of decompress from the rigors of the walk and the thoughts of what you have seen, and for a second or two forget about the volcano. There is a small museum and gift shops and the usual tourist marketplace as you gather for your bus. It's one thing to see these on TV or in movies or on a big screen, but when you are right there staring at the faces, you can really see the pain in some of their expressions. It gives you an eerie feeling. You know they were well aware that they were about to die. This one, holding a child, was chilling. It's later on, as you walk away from the people and the buses and the other tourists, you think, wow, man, I walked through Pompeii. It's a place I never thought I would get to see. To get the opportunity to go there and to see the city and the excavations and walk on the stones that people walked on over 2,000 years ago and see the casts of the unfortunate people who were killed during the eruption was just something I was not going to miss.